seems like a good enough location to where you're kind of in that rung just below the institutions that are well-seasoned retail operators.
It seems like a pretty stabilized asset. Looks to be physically in good shape. It's well tenanted. Seems thoughtful.
If you're a rich guy or gal and want to own something for a long period of time and kind of ride rents up with the market over a few decades, this is a sweet one.
Welcome to this week's episode of Real Estate Anonymous. This week we're going to be covering a lot of ground as we normally do. We're going to be introducing super cool words like effectuate and agrarian, which I'm still not sure what that is, but Eric uses that term. So look that up. Where we're going to weave that in is 70,000 square foot retail center in Peachtree City, which is south of Atlanta. We're going to make sure that this is not a neighborhood where you're going to get your rear end kicked by some guys named Murph, Fitz, or Sully. And then also we're going to tell you where to stash pipes that those guys might beat you up with. Hope you enjoy, and we'll pick it up soon.
Good morning. Welcome in another edition of the Real Estate Anonymous podcast. Eric Weatherholtz, Brett Moss. I'm Elliott White. We are here today. We're going to take a look at a retail deal in Mr. Weatherholtz's home state. But before we get into that, we'll kind of chat a bit about what's going on. Brett, you've been, I assume, more active lately, but kind of a weird time in the market. I've seen some sales, some things you guys have closed, but what's happening in your world?
Yes, I would say that's a fair comment. Feels better out there, and there are transactions that are getting closed on the residential side, both build for rent and conventional multi-housing, but it ain't easy, so to say. And I think there was a window of time there when rates kind of stabilized. And I think for those folks that have been paying attention to the 10-year treasury, that has not been stable over the last 3 to 4 weeks. So, which is an interesting dynamic. And, but, I think that it turns out interest rates do matter. And I think it's going to be a lot of sellers that are going to say, like, how much of a pricing adjustment or a retrade am I willing to take to kind of get this deal closed before the end of the year?
Yeah, it is an interesting environment. What's the S&P up this year? Is it like 30-something%? It's been on just an absolute run. And I was listening to, I think it was Bloomberg yesterday, and they had some analyst on. He was talking about, we know that PE ratios are a little high, but we think that a lot of the excitement is a mix of valuation and earnings. And I just kind of got skeptical that, like, it's going to keep going forever. That feels tough. I feel like they'll be not predicting any kind of recession, but it seems unlikely that a 35% run up in the S&P is here to stay. And so I think investors are looking at the broader market and going, what is going on out here? What's happening with the 10-year? Is there going to be a little bit of softness in the market? And if that's true, what does that mean for this 10-year? Should I accept this retrade and just get out now? Or am I worried that we're going to see spreads blow out again, and this 4.3 handle is going to go up to a 4.9 or a 5 in short order? I don't know the answer to that, but it did seem like there was stability for a bit, and a lot of that's gone. Are you guys seeing deals fall out of contract because of it, or people are starting to wonder?
I think people are working through due diligence. So, there's not going to be a lot brought out before the end of the year. I think if you wanted to try to get a deal to effectuate, I don't know what that term means, but I think it means to try to get it closed before. How's that?
Is that the word of the day?
Effectuate a year-end close. You were coming out probably post Labor Day, and again, the rate environment was a lot more stable at that point in time. But and I think that when there is volatility here, whether it's a justified pricing adjustment ask or not, if you're on the buy side, you're going to ask for it. The worst they're going to say is no.
So could you say, can you effectuate a retrade? Is that a fair thing to say?
Well, yes, but assuming it's essential.
I'm going to retrade this.
Yes, right. Just prove it to me how badly you guys want to get this closed before the end of the year.
Tell me how this effectuation feels.
Yeah.
Put into force or operation. Okay.
Yeah, I think that was the right use of the term.
Sure. I can't prove the negatives. I believe you.
Yeah. Say it
Did you
quickly and
look it up,
confidently
or
move
was
move
that
on.
sent around? Uh,
This dude, he
No,
knew. He woke up
yeah,
hot.
that.
he was just going to walk around and effectuate some shit.
The word for the day is effectuate. That was my word of the day, so I got it out of the way, and it's got some legs here. So we'd encourage
Is this
anyone that's
something you
listening
just
to
started
this.
working on today, or have you had a few? If you've been working with this for like a week,
The word of the day.
No. This has been one that's been in the rotation for a while, just because somebody said it, and I was like, I've never heard that term before.
I like it.
If they're using it, it must be true. So I'm going to use it as well.
That's a $9 word. I'll take a hold of that.
Yeah,
I'll
makes you seem like
use
you're.
to effectuate.
I think one of the presidential candidates said, "I know words. I know the best words. I'm not sure I know the best words.
I know the best words. Yeah.
Right? I know words. Oh, do you?
They're perfect words. They're perfect words.
Yeah, the best words.
I have a little sister who I love very dearly, and she's very liberal. I mean, she is just about as liberal as it gets. She's an attorney. She lives in D.C. Not a big fan of Trump. And there was a while ago where I think he referred to himself as a very stable genius. And so and my sister is a genius. I mean, she's an actual legitimate genius. And I got her a sweatshirt that said very stable genius.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. She said she wears it around the house, but she refuses to go outside in it.
Yeah.
Eric,
you wouldn't want to wear that in Florida. I can tell you that. You would be accosted by some sort of mob.
Eric, what's new with you?
I had an interesting trip. A friend of the show invited me to take a tour of a property in Caldwell, Idaho, and I took him up on it. Caldwell, Idaho is a suburb of Boise, Idaho. Boise, Idaho is, believe it or not, on fire. Great town, super cool.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, Caldwell was the rough and tumble exurb, the place where, as recent as 15 years ago, if you were an Idaho cowboy and you wanted to get in a fight, you'd go to Caldwell. That was kind of what it was known for. Anyway, this town has done, it's always interesting, the power of a municipality to change the trajectory of a town. There was they found that there was a creek that ran through the city, but it was covered up with old, muffler shops. The actual creek had been covered. They daylighted it, have made this wonderful little river running through the town, and it's a grid street and old brick buildings. And they tore down some buildings and created a town square. And anyway, Caldwell, Idaho now has this vibrancy to it that's very cool to see, evidenced by a local guy, Hispanic cat, who opens a restaurant, calls it a mono, which means, I've now learned, handmade. He makes the most fantastic tacos that you've ever had.
Really?
If you want a plate of tacos at a Mana in Caldwell, Idaho, dust off your wallet. It's $35. And if you didn't think you'd pay $35 for a plate of tacos, go there and you will gladly do it again.
I am skeptical of fancy Mexican food because by and large, the best version of the thing is like a taco truck on the side of the highway,
Right there with you, baby.
We have this, I don't know if Tena's Call is a chain or not, but there's this Mexican restaurant near us, one of these developments called Tena's Call. And they're famous. Well, they're not famous. The food is pedestrian at best, but it's the kind of place where you go and you can get like 2 tacos for $21. And I flat out refuse to go there because I just like the better version is a quarter the price. You can get like a not great steak and pay more money for a great steak. And I understand like a $10 flannel shirt is not as comfortable as a $80 flannel shirt. There's some range of quality, but it's, to me, mostly inversely correlated with Mexican food, that the more I pay, the more pissed off I get when it comes out on this big ass plate with a little sprig of parsley and some coulis drawn on it. And it's 2 tacos for $38. However, I am nothing if not flexible, and I'm amenable to changing my position and checking out these tacos out of Mono because Eric has a level of expertise in this domain that I trust. So
I'm
I'm
well
inclined.
versed in tacos, and like you, underpaying for tacos is part of the joy, and skeptical at best. And believe me when I tell you, if you find yourself in Caldwell, Idaho, get yourself a taco at a mall. Get yourself a $35 plate of tacos.
Is
All right.
Caldwell still the kind of town where you can get your ass kicked if that's what you're looking for, or is most of that
You have to
gone?
look a little bit harder. They've kind of reined it in. I mean, I think if you were out on the outskirts and you wanted to stir some shit up, you could. But you're walking around downtown, you're perfectly safe.
That's one of my favorite parts about these two neighborhoods in Boston, Charlestown and South Boston. They've largely been gentrified and taken over by yuppies. But for a while, that was where your true towny kind of gangbanger, whitey
You get your
bulger
ass
mob.
beat in Charlestown.
Yeah, and you still can. There's like a part for the pickleball crowd, but if you stray from that part and every year what happens is some kid moves to Boston for college and thinks he's going to reinvent himself as a tough guy, and he goes out and he's at some neighborhood bar in Charlestown or in Southie, and he just doesn't really know any better, and he starts talking to like the guy in his mid 40s who's just sitting there drinking a Budweiser and wants to be left alone, and he starts with him, and that guy kicks his teeth in like real quick, just him up, and then he learns a valuable lesson. It's a self-correcting mistake, and Chad doesn't ever mess with, Fitzy again. Like,
I was waiting for his name. His name was
it's typically
Sully.
Yeah, it's typically Chad, Parker, Braxton, or Tucker. They show up at some bar, and a guy named Fitzy, Murph, Sully, or Tommy Thumbs is happy to just knock his derby loose, and they go right back to their beer. They're like, oh, yeah. I got to beat the shit out of this kid. I go this kid up, and they give him a little Cambridge karate, and he's just passed out on the floor of the bar. And then they sit back down and drink their beer again because they're not worried that when Braxton wakes up, he's going to come at him again. The guy's like, oh, watching the Sox game. Why'd you leave me alone? And yeah. So that's
you don't have to get hit with a pipe more than once.
No, you don't. You don't. No. Yeah. God damn, if that isn't true. Yeah, if some guy pulls a pipe out and says he's going to beat the shit out of you, you're just like, I believe you. I'm out.
Right.
I have tested this theory before. You seem like the guy who would swing a pipe at me.
And now this might sound counterintuitive, but I'd say if you pull out a pipe, you're more ready to use it than some people that pull out a gun.
Yeah.
I mean, if you we're going to get to know each other real quickly. Shooting you from 10 feet away is far less intimate than me cracking you over the head with the drainage pipe.
Also, if you pulled out a pipe, it's not the first time you pulled out a pipe.
No, you've got that ready. It's like, go time, grab the pipe.
The fact that you have a pipe.
Yeah, right. Well, no one's looking around for a pipe. You're like, I keep that thing on me. We got trouble brewing.
But I bet Fitzy and Murph are sitting at the bar, and there's probably some ledge underneath it where they just keep the pipe.
Yeah, for sure.
Just very efficient,
right under the ledge.
Why travel with a late '90s sedan of some sort?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. They walk. Yeah. If a guy goes, hang on, I'll be right back. Get the out of that bar. Don't stick around for him to come back. No. Whatever he's coming back with is a thing you don't want.
Right.
We debate here sometimes whether I describe certain neighborhoods as shooty or stabby, and I think you'd be inclined to think that the shooty neighborhood would be more dangerous than the stabby neighborhood. There's a real debate here. I'll open this up to you because shooty seems bad and is bad, but stabby is pretty personal. Like a guy who's going to shoot you is like maybe going to shoot you, but also it's like far. But a guy who's going to stab you has it in his mind like I'm going to stab this guy. It is an up close and personal, and so we don't. I'm working on a graph that sort of shows neighborhoods from unbelievable. Yeah, pretty good, nice, decent blue collar. I don't know, it's a little rough, but it's a commuter. Now this one's kind of sketchy. Yeah, this is bad. This is shooty. This is stabby. There's like a continuum of neighborhoods and like a return that's correlated that I'd like to put together for LPs so they understand that when GPs say like, oh, the neighborhood's a little rough. I'm like, let me translate that for you. You'll get stabbed. Don't go. But yeah,
Now,
I like
is there
those
any
towns.
data to back this? Is there any data to back this up, or is it just kind of like, hey, just trust me on
This
this?
is just years in the trenches, and I think there's yeah, it's like the y-axis is from amazing top quality neighborhood to stabby, and there's lots of stops along the way. And then I think the
Yeah.
x-axis is probably either how it's pitched or some like rate of return or the security of the return.
The durability of cash flows for another nerdy real estate effectuate durability of cash flows.
Yeah. If you use effectuate at one of these bars in Boston, the pipe is coming for you.
You're getting smacked in
In
the
a
head with a
hot
pipe
minute.
real quickly.
As soon as you use effectuate.
This.
Yeah, maybe we should do one of these next podcasts in one of these bars in Boston and get some of these guys and see if they can maybe add some insights, and then also show people the pipe they're going to beat their ass with if they respond in any derogatory way.
Trade you for some oxys.
I got a buddy named Tim. Everyone in Boston is they have a Y on the end. So Timmy, Paulie, Marky. It's like everyone. Doesn't matter what your name is. You get a Y on the end of your name. And so my buddy Timmy, his famous line when someone was looking at him the wrong way, with a really thick Boston accent, he would go, "Who are you? I f***ing." That's what he. That's what he would say. "Who are you? I f***ing."
Yeah.
I guess he thought someone's. I don't know. It's a great term. I've used it sporadically, but it always warms my heart when I do.
Well, some people in my family call me Bretty, so I think I could fit into Boston. But if somebody says that to you, that is code for you're going to have an orbital fracture and be taking a nap of some to be determined location in the very near future.
Yeah, who are you? I is the thing you hear before someone starts swinging. Yeah,
not good. Not good.
We got what do we got today?
Well, speaking of getting hit with a pipe and getting, as we say, I fucked. Let's talk about some real estate.
Yeah, we're going to Peachtree Corners. Is that right?
No.
Peachtree
City.
Peachtree City.
So
we're about 20, 30 minutes south of Atlanta, southwest-ish, and we're in Eric's home state. So we're gonna chat about this guy. Eric, what do you know about the deal? What do you like about the deal?
Peachtree City is one of a handful of cities that were created kind of along that Reston, Virginia model of planned cities of the, I'm going to say 70s. Lots of cul-de-sacs, kind of a miniature mid-market Orange County that was created south of Atlanta. Lots of manicured cul-de-sacs and neighborhoods and planned shopping centers and tree-lined boulevards. What makes it notable, among other things, is that the preferred mode of transportation is golf carts. So the entire area is like a web of golf cart trails, which I always thought would be cool as a child, because these kids are out there ripping on golf carts, from probably age 8 on, and have like complete mobility around this town of suburbanism, suburbia. Anyway, a upper income neighborhood, very homogeneously stable and pleasant. It's a pleasant place, Peachtree City. And uniquely, most of Atlanta's growth historically has been on the north side of town. And this is, but the airport is on the south side. And what's been happening over the last decade or so is an incredible amount of large scale development going on, to the south of the city, and just massive projects, very cool stuff, a lot of stuff around the film industry, a lot of stuff around agrarian tourism, and just really cool housing projects that are going on. And then in the midst of this is, Peachtree City and this kind of 70s, 80s vibe that's now kind of catching its stride.
11,000 registered golf carts. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Maybe my only good purchase during COVID was a golf cart. That was one of the few things that my wife didn't get. Or she actually was mad at me for buying that at first. But I go back to Eric's comment about, kids driving these things. And I do think I didn't think through this, which is probably not surprising to you three or you two or anyone else that's listening. But our, 10-year-old daughter at the time started driving this thing for the last, with me or my wife in the golf cart with her. But I think it's a good way to kind of teach kids how to drive at an early age. In all honesty, so I got that going for me, which is nice, and she's pretty
You're
good
hitting
now.
home runs as a dad.
Now, well, a few episodes ago, I'm not sure people would have thought that when my 4-year-old had a box cutter out on this podcast, which still is getting old.
Your kid is going to say in the not too distant future, you'll say something to him, and he'll turn to you and go, "Who are you, Dad?"
Yeah, and I'll have one of those small box cutters and pull it out.
He will. Yeah. You better be ready with the allowance. You're going to get stuck.
Yeah.
Your neighborhood's going to get stabbier as that kid gets older.
No doubt. It's just a matter of time.
He's already running dice games, I can tell.
Yeah. He's going to be driving the golf cart next year by himself, whether I approve of it or not.
Peachtree City is this is the place where a retail shopping center filled with late model SUVs, oversized SUVs, and then on the back window is the stick figure family.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
Yep,
and maybe a high school sticker. My son's the football team. That's Peachtree City.
Okay.
Or it's the Ford truck with the guy peeing on the Chevy logo, or vice versa, which I love that. It's like it's always
the tallest men who drive those things.
Right.
All right. So the first question: do I fundamentally understand why people want to live here? Which is obviously a proxy for successful retail. That seems pretty clear. Great market.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. I like that.
So now we're talking. This is the interesting kind of retail that I don't want to call it a strip mall because it's far nicer, but it seems to be retail that is not going to be replaced by the internet, right? This is like smaller, a destination shop. It's not big box retail. These all appear to be pretty smaller. So just to give folks an idea, total thing is 73,000 square feet, 86% leased, was built in 1993. Sits on just under 5.5 acres. They're projecting 1.5 in year one NOI, but see about that. 32,000 vehicles per day. It's at a pretty major intersection. So on I-74, you're getting 32,000 vehicles a day. Sorry, not I-54, Route 74, Georgia State Route 74, 32,000 vehicles a day. State Route 54, you're getting 46,000 vehicles a day. So tons of traffic. This feels like a pretty main location. And what I thought was interesting about it, my pitch earlier that it's destination retail that's not going to be easily replaced by the internet, not big boxes. If you look at some of these square footages for the tenants, you've got Emory Rehab seems to have a bigger one, and Pascal's Bistro. There's a couple of restaurants that have like 3,000, 3,500 square feet, but you've got Urgent Care Vet, you've got Dumpling Shop, you got just a couple other like local things. Square footage is 1,100, 2,900, 1,900, 1,300. So it's not, these are smaller tenants. There probably aren't as many credit tenants, which Eric, you may have a thought on kind of the risk associated with this, but presumably this is a pretty attractive retail center that if Sky, Nails and Spa goes out of business, your downtime is a handful of months and then someone else is in there making use of that space. Is that the right way to think about it?
Yeah, this is a fantastic deal. I'll give you a few thoughts on it. So you're in this kind of affluent bubble, suburban bubble that's quite stable. You're across the street from Lululemon, Sephora, Warby Parker, that world. And this is a goofy, funky, weirdly shaped, odd strip center. And so rents across the street are, in the Lululemon property I'm going to guess they're making deals in the $40-ish a square foot range. And I think if you look at, what's the NOI that's projected here, you're probably, we're not going to get into their rent rolls or anything, but probably at about a $20 square footish kind of net rent
Okay.
of what's sitting there. So you're in ways that you're sharply discounted to the kind of rents that are surrounding you. You're on this corner. You've got a ton of small little spaces. You're not, which can be, which was your point earlier, is you don't have, lots of anchors or credit tenants or those sort of things. But the inverse is you've got these small little spaces where if you lose one or you lose a handful of them, doesn't
Right.
really change the story. And the other thing that makes it interesting is at $1.5 million NOI, this becomes it's a bigger check than, it's not a doctor dentist kind of deal,
Mhm.
Right.
And it's also not something that, for reasons we can get into, it's not super appealing to institutional type buyers. Sometimes they'll surprise you, but it's kind of this weird thing that it's a pretty big deal as unanchored retail goes. And but it's in an area that's not super prime. It's not like this is in the middle of Atlanta. It's out in the suburbs in this sort of sleepy part of the world. So the amount of competition for this type of product, because of the size of it being a little bigger or a fair amount bigger than what would be normal for a sub-institutional buyer, I think it's terrific. And this is the kind of thing where you can, if you're a rich guy or gal and want to own something for a long period of time and kind of ride rents up with the market over a few decades, this is a sweet one.
Yeah, I agree with the comment about the institutions not playing on this, but I mean, this seems like a good enough location to where you're kind of in that rung just below the institutions that are well-seasoned retail operators, and with good relationships to institutional capital would be probably the way I think about this. And the one thing, I don't know anything about retail. I don't know anything about a lot, but the one funky thing about this, and maybe this,
and the beautiful part is this show, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, right. But I would say that one of the things,
exactly.
No, one of the things about this that I know has been challenging on a few of these deals in Central Florida is the second floor retail component, which is atypical, I would say. And you do need a specialized user or tenant for that second floor, or it needs to be a good enough location to where people are just saying, screw it, like it's not ideal, but I want to be in the center.
So it shows that on the second floor, the spaces are larger. So that could be where there's sort of an outpatient or a vet clinic or a more of a service than retail, because the second floor spaces are larger. So I think they have thought about that, and they're probably thinking, well, if we're going to have a emergency vet, this is where we'll put them. They don't need to be on the first floor. That kind of thing.
And there's nothing better than if something, God forbid, happened to one of your pets where you needed to go to an emergency vet, walking upstairs with some sort of significantly hurt animal.
Right.
I don't know if that's too off color, but that does seem very insensitive, I would think, because you're going through a lot if you're taking an animal. Yeah. So anyway, I'm with
you. Want to be like,
sorry,
I'll find out who the
no. I don't want to get sideways with you, Elliott, because I know it's not going to end well for me.
Yeah, I'm a guy who keeps a pipe on him.
Yeah, we're going to get to that later, trust me. So we got an orthodontics user here in this picture, it looks like, and there was a pediatric
on the second story.
Yeah,
family
there was a
orthodontist.
pediatric.
Do you have any aversion to walking upstairs with your child with crooked teeth, or you're back on board?
You might be saving some money if they fall down and knock out some of their crooked teeth. So I'm down with that strategy.
Have you ever taken Box Cutter Boy to get his teeth fixed?
I was just going to say, Box Cutter Boy has pretty good teeth, but real estate business could be better. So maybe in an effort to save some money, when he does get to that point, we can take him here, and if he accidentally falls down. So quick story about Box Cutter Boy. My mom passed away recently, which we're not going to talk about in detail, but her celebration of life was a couple Fridays ago. And less than 2 hours before the service, Box Cutter Boy is spinning in circles in a chair in our living room and goes flying off, hits the back of his head on the coffee table, blood everywhere. So he's getting staples in his head about 90 minutes before my mom's funeral. And I'm just like, you can't make that stuff up. Like,
The kid's
he's
a
one-on-one.
menace.
Yeah, no box cutters, but
Absolute menace. I love him.
4 staples in the back of his head. And he seemed to enjoy getting those put into the back of his head.
Yeah, that's definitely the kid where 10 years from now, you're going to be talking to your wife and you'll be like, what's his name? Charlie?
Charlie.
Yeah. Can you f***ing believe what Charlie set on fire again? Like, he's like,
no.
burning his bike in the driveway or whatever.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's 10 years. That's going to be like 2 years from now.
So, Eric, for something like this, how it seems like a pretty stabilized asset. Looks to be physically in good shape. It's well tenanted. Seems thoughtful. You're going to have to pay up for it. I think we probably know that. But is the next buyer, when you talk about Lulu's getting $40 a foot, maybe these rents are in the mid 20s, is your next buyer, or you as the buyer, are you looking at this as this is great real estate I want to hold, or do you think there's some value add, some way to lift the rent in a way that's above a normal turnover?
Here's what I like about it is this market's, getting close to basically built out. There's not going to be any huge influx or, of density or more people. And it's going to become, as Atlanta grows, this just becomes a more attractive suburb that becomes even more accessible as the market, as the Atlanta growth continues in all directions. This becomes more of a more infill type area over decades. It won't increase with density because everything's so tightly planned. It also won't increase with any competition. And you're sort of locking in a price, and who knows what this sells for, but let's just say it sold at if I was guessing, I'd say it's maybe around a 7 cap.
Really?
And then you end up at kind of a, sub $300 a square foot price per square foot. To build this, it's goofy. You wouldn't build it again. It's got the 2-story stuff. It's funky, but you can't build space if the land was free at this price. So you've sort of forever got this thing, as long as you, maintain it, that you're on this corner, you've got all this stuff going around it, and you've sort of stopped time at a price that you have I think you can have a going in yield that makes a lot of sense. And then you just kind of ride with inflation over time and you get a nice little loan on it, pay it down over a decade or so. This is a sweet one if you've got some
coin.
If you got some dollars.
Now, the one thing that did stick out to me on this page was prospective tenant, bigger space there, 8,000 square feet at the bottom, and then another one at 4,000 square feet. And then I think the assumption there is you're taking those tenants or previous tenants from $11 gross per square foot gross to basically 2.5 times their rent to triple net. That seems like a pretty aggressive assumption, but I do think I agree with Eric that I think there's some compelling dynamics to this deal or reasons to buy this deal, especially with kind of looking around the surrounding users and kind of you're slotting in, it would seem, just below the Lululemon shops or whatever, the shops or Avenue, whatever that's called across the street.
It's an SUV catcher for sure.
That's a good term.
With some cool bumper stickers.
That's what they used to call Brett back in his day.
That's right. That's right. With my subwoofers in the back of my Acura Integra. It was pretty cool.
Brett would be cruising by the suburban moms at MSU with his speakers pumping. Yeah.
Yep. Ladies, you want to step
jean
into
shorts,
my Hyundai?
gold chain, no fear T-shirt. Watch out, ladies.
Maybe no shirt. You never know.
I think we going to vote? I think I'm a buyer here.
Let's move. Yeah, let's move to vote.
I'm a buyer.
I'm in.
I'm in.
Get the bell.
The bell's coming. So we get to ring the closing bell 3 times. I think that was 3 times. Yeah.
Awesome.
One, please.
I like it. Okay, I think
All
we've
right,
pretty
guys,
much covered it.
always fun. 3 buyers here. That's rare. This is one you're going to want to flag on the episodes.
All right, gents, good stuff. We'll catch everyone next week.